In this video, we'll be talking about core competency number 7, direct communication. So you ICF credentialed coaches out there or looking to be credentialed, this is a great series for you to learn about the core competencies. What we're doing is we're bringing to you people, mentor coaches from around the world. And today we have Marilyn O'Hearn. How you doing, Marilyn?
I'm doing great, Brighton, and you?
I'm doing great too. Very excited about this series. So I want to jump directly in to providing that value. I would love for you to, let's talk about number 7, direct communication. If you could just give us kind of your definition of direct communication.
Direct communication, Brighton, is really about how to most effectively communicate with your coaching clients so that you have the greatest positive impact. And that looks really different with different cultures, is what I've discovered. And so it's important to understand where's that line. I actually came up with a term, the directometer. Where are you on the directometer? You don't want to be too low and not have any impact, but you don't want to go too far where you really have pushed it and offended the client. So that's one of the things that I like to play with, because I find coaches are scared of this competency. They really don't want to push it too far. And so they tend to underutilize it. And so learning how to effectively utilize it really enhances your coaching impact.
Great. I love that. So maybe you could tell us, you're a mentor coach, so you get to see people and judge whether or not they've mastered this competency. Maybe you could tell us, what does it look like when you're watching someone's coaching and they really have mastered this competency?
Yes. Well, I'll hear several things when they're really utilizing the direct communication. And just a contrast. So a beginning coach is going to be asking lots of questions, so many sometimes that the client is just like exhausted or worn out. And we don't want that. That is going to have a decreased impact. And a masterful coach, it's more of the partnership, more of a flow, and they will be inviting direct communication actually back from the client themselves. And some of the things that I listen for are the coach sharing their observations, their intuition. It really ties into active listening in terms of that competency. In both, you're sharing your observations and your intuitions. You're not just asking questions. And the client wants to hear from you. And you're doing that in a really positive way. You're listening for their strengths. You're building on those. You're recognizing those. So I think one of the most powerful direct communications are a you are statement, like, Brighton, you are so warm and friendly and skilled at helping people learn how to master videos. So that, I'm not saying I think that, or you might be, but really recognizing who you are and what you bring and your strengths, is people don't do that very much. They don't do that very much in their own head, and you don't hear it very much in the workplace or at home, unfortunately. So that is a really powerful direct communication.
That's awesome. And I had this nice little flush almost when you said that, because that is so true. I do that all the time. I kind of ratchet back my language and I say, I think you're the best coach ever. But to just say it and be direct. That's interesting. It's an interesting distinction that I didn't have. So maybe you could tell us a little bit more about what it looks like when someone doesn't have this. You mentioned that they ask a lot of questions, but maybe go into a little bit more about when they're not being direct.
Yeah, not being direct. So they're not being clear in their communication. And they're maybe talking too much. So there is a balance in coaching between how much the coach is speaking and how much the client is speaking. Again, at a masterful level, there's a balance between the two. And so direct communication, you want to find that balance. It's not like I'm asking you so many questions or speaking so much that you don't have any space to room to breathe and respond and communicate back with me. So that would be one thing where you could see, they're not getting it. And I think just not, maybe using some jargon or language, coaching jargon that the client's not familiar with. So you want to use their language and especially building upon their metaphors. So listening for those metaphors and building on those, because those are a backdoor to the brain, is what I say. So our brains, when they're confronted with change or something new, the alarms go off, danger, danger, danger. But when you use a metaphor, you're linking something unfamiliar with something familiar, and the brain kind of relaxes. It's like, oh, this is okay. I already know this piece. Your journey is like walking along a stream or a road. I know a road. I know walking along a stream. So it's okay.
Great. Thank you for that. So I want to go into a similar area that you're touching on through this. Mm-hmm. But as a mentor coach, you're working with people that are ACCs or PCCs or MCCs. Maybe you could tell me a little bit about what's different between people that are on an ACC level and they're doing great with direct communication versus an MCC level and are doing great with direct communication.
Yeah. So let's start with MCC level. And again, it's a mutual partnership where I, as an MCC, would be sharing, when you say that, what comes up for me is, and we have that agreement already in place that we can do that kind of sharing together. And sometimes I might have an intuitive image of something related to what the client is talking about. And then I can also ask them, and how does that land for you? So I'm checking back with them. I'm not just putting out, here's my intuition or my observation and treating it as truth. That might be an ACC level. I'm putting it out there, but I'm not checking back with the client. And then the PCC level is kind of in between. I'm doing some sharing of feedback and I'm listening for metaphors, and I'm starting to build on those using some of the client's language, but there's not the same flow, the same back and forth as there is at the MCC level. And I want to say also, Brighton, that it really flows with all of the other 10 competencies. So if we're talking about communication and having the greatest positive impact and understanding the differences, when you go back to coaching agreement, which is, a huge cornerstone, then it is about, so knowing my client and when do we start even talking about the agreement? Because I know some coaches that I coach, like in Japan or Korea, they have to take several sessions to build the relationship and the trust and intimacy with the client before they can even get to the agreement. So I've almost fired a coach one time because he spent so long just chatting at the beginning of the session. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to get right to the matter. So, as a Westerner, I might say at the beginning, what do you want to get out of the coaching session? And someone from a different culture, less direct, might take 15 minutes into the session, or it's the third session. It's not the first session. So there really is a big difference.
Great. Well, thank you for that, because I think the idea of how much these all work together is really coming out as I talk to people about this series.
Yes.
So I want to give you a chance just to tell people how they can get in touch with you. You are a mentor coach, and you have very much a global reach.
Yes.
But how can folks get in touch with you?
Yes. They can email me, Marilyn at marilynoh.com, and that's my website, marilynoh.com, if you want to find out more about my mentor coaching program, which starts in January. And then I have a 7-session course on how to be direct without crossing the line that really does a deep dive into the competency.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today, and thank you for watching. If you're ready to go on to the next competency, number 8, just go ahead and click up here or head down here. And actually, I'm going to put number 2 here because you just mentioned the coaching agreement. And so if you want to go back and learn about the coaching agreement, head on down here. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next video.